Hey everyone, Justin here with LGBT Outdoors, and I want to thank you for taking the time to check out our live chat tonight. We have a great chat that's lined up for you, and I'm really excited to dive into it. Before we do, though, a couple things we want to just go over. During this time, this is live, so we do have the ability to take questions. If you have questions for us at LGBT Outdoors in general, we'll answer those at the very end of the program. If you have questions for our guest, feel free to shoot those out anytime, and we'll try to get to those once we're done chatting with him. Also, be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. That way, you keep up to date with everything that is going on. And also, we know that we're in a very difficult time right now. A lot of you are probably bored out of your minds. So, we want to encourage you to check out our website. It's lgbtoutdoors.com. On there, we have a lot of blogs that you can check out, research cool things that you might thought that you never wanted to do, but you've always been curious about. We have all kinds of blogs from canyoneering, hiking, fishing, just lots of old blogs that you can go through and read. We try to put one out once a week. We also have a directory on there of LGBTQ plus friendly companies and outfitters. So if you want to plan your next trip and not sure where to start, that's a great place to jump on and to be able to go through and plan your trip for once we get out of this. So we decided to do a fun little bit for you guys while we're in quarantine, and we are calling it Postcards from Quarantine. So what we're going to be doing is we're asking you to send us or DM us postcards from quarantine. The first one is if you have a lot of time on your hands and taking naps, who doesn't want to take a nap with a puppy? I mean, come on, that's great. Or if you have kids in the house when you're trying to take a nap, you might end up with this, with kids' feet in your face while you're trying to take your nap. Doesn't look like that nap is going to work out too well for him. Um, Also, we have a big problem right now, obviously. I'm wearing a cap right now. It's because we don't want my hair being shown, and our viewers are having the same problem. So I would love to see some of your guys' haircuts that you've tried that have gone wrong. I've seen plenty that have gone pretty good, but if you have any that have gone wrong, send them to us as well. We'd love to check that out. And if your chicken is bored, I guess try playing Battleship with them. Apparently, chickens can play Battleship. Anyways, if you have any videos or photos that you want to send us of your quarantine, you can send them to info at lgbt.com. Back that up. You can send them to info at lgbtoutdoors.com. There we go. Or you can DM us in our Instagram as well. So, I want to introduce our guest to you tonight. Raised on the shores of the Goot sound? I just lost that. Puget sound?
Puget.
Puget sound. Puget?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm having to ask Patrick here, and Connor's like, I gave you this information. Sorry. Puget Sound, the pines of the Sierras, and the volcanoes of the Cascades. Connor Henzel grew up with the love of nature. After earning his degree in environmental science from the University of Oregon, he took his life on the road, working seasonally in the outdoor industry. He has grown into his queer identity and has found ways to combine his love of the outdoors with his passion for diversity and equitable access to the outdoors. All the way from Montana, here is Connor Henzel. Hey, Connor.
Hi.
Thank
How
you
you
for
doing?
joining us tonight. We're so glad that you're here. I know that we have talked a little bit, and I think that you have a lot of great information that we're going to be bringing to our viewers tonight. So I'd love to just jump in and just start off with you sharing a little bit about your background. And, we talked a little bit in the intro about where you grew up, but a little bit about where you grew up, how you got into the outdoors, and your background.
Yeah, so I had the chance to grow up in the Puget Sound, which is that big body of water next to Seattle. And I had access to the forests, the oceans, the tide pools, and everything that's great about the Pacific Northwest. And my family often got me out on hikes and camping trips. So from a young age, I was always getting out. And then we moved a lot when I was little. So I got to see a lot of the West, a lot of the different states out there. and get involved in outdoor recreation at a young age. I remember in elementary school, me and my mom were pretty into geocaching up in the Sierras, and that was fun.
Very cool. So I know a lot of people aren't wanting to focus on the quarantine right now, so we don't want to focus a lot on that. But as an outdoor person, what are you doing during this time to stay busy during your lockdown, and what's that like for you right now?
Well, I have been just trying to get outside as much as possible, which is maybe an ironic answer, but getting on walks around the neighborhood, going on jogs up and down the streets. I have a forest in my backyard right now, so fortunately, I can still hike while
Nice.
staying socially distant and obeying quarantine mandates. In fact, the town I live in right now is a trail town for the Continental Divide Trail, and I have a trailhead for the CDT just a couple blocks from my house.
Nice. That sounds pretty incredible, really. How did you get into the outdoors a little bit more? And specifically, I know that the national parks are a big passion of yours. So specifically with the national parks, what drew you to that?
Hmm. It just seemed like it just kept getting more and more outdoorsy as I got older, especially through college, as I took more and more classes in ecology and the outdoors, and I had various field trips with my classes. I just sort of gravitated to being outside and enjoying being outside. Of course, I wasn't always super out, and I hated rain with a passion, and I usually only like to go outside when it was really nice out, but I'm getting better at getting more gear and learning how to, handle the less great weather and get out in that. And then after college, I found the outdoor and tourism and visitors and all that, and guiding and outdoor education. So since college, I've been traveling about every 6 months to a year on average from state to state to state, moving with the seasons.
Wow.
That's just the way our jobs work. For those of you who aren't in this industry, we know we move with the weather changes, we move when tourism is open in different places. And moving that often to different parts of the country has really forced me to learn that places' ecology, the weather, the natural hazards, how to prepare for hiking in those locations, how different rocks and different substrates due to different geologies can affect how you hike. And it's been a great crash course in just hiking throughout the continent.
That's incredible. So you said that you moved from with the seasons from state to state. How long are you usually in a different state? And then how are you finding places to stay? Are you just doing like Airbnbs? Are you finding people in those areas that you are living with, or what does that look like?
I can spend anywhere from as little to about maybe about 4 to 6 months, up to maybe 9 months in one spot. And because people like me are moving around a lot of these employers have housing for us. So we don't have to really worry about housing. I have a lot of friends who have RVs or they have van life and they just live on public land while they're doing that. Um, I don't have that, so I need a job that is going to give me housing for the most, and I need to find a rent in the local community, but usually employers will provide that.
Awesome. That's cool. What's some of the biggest challenges that you face with being in the outdoors, and having to travel seasonally? I'm sure that there could be all kinds of challenges from, and it takes probably a special kind of person to do that. I mean, if you're a person that wants to be close to your family or have tight, close friends that you always want to be around, that's probably a little bit more difficult. But what is that? How does that work for you? I take it you're kind of more of a free spirit that likes to travel around a lot, obviously, since you're in that industry.
Yeah, and I think it helps that I moved around a lot as a child. So I was already used to moving from place to place, and
Okay.
it just became normal for me, and it wasn't quite as big of a deal as it might have been otherwise. It is really hard to be away from family friends, and I miss them every day. But it's worked out that all of my seasons happen to geographically be located where Oregon's right in the middle. That's where I'm from. That's where my family and friends are. So I usually get to go back home through Oregon on my way to my next state. So every 6 months or so, I get to see everybody.
Okay. Very cool. What would say? I know that you've got to have a crazy amount of favorite moments that you've had. I know for me, I've been to Glacier National Park, which is basically where you're at now, if I understand right. And it is just stunning. And so I could only imagine traveling around to a bunch of different national parks. Like, you've got to have so many incredible experiences. Do you have one or two that you could tell us about that, like, this moment just really stood out for you?
Hmm, that is hard. I think my favorite is probably my backpacking trip down, which was my first through hike, and I was just really proud of myself for finally doing a through hike and learning how to do it. Um, Although I've been hiking and camping a lot as a child, I had never had the chance to really go backpacking. And so just last year, I finally got to do a through hike. I'd done a few one nighters before, but this one in Zion was pretty special to me, also because I lived pretty close to Zion at the time, and I went there about once a month to hike, and so I had a lot of really cool firsts um, in Zion. That was my first time on the Colorado Plateau, and my first time doing those crazy, intense hikes all the way up to the top of Angel's Landing or the West Rim. And I'm someone who has been pretty afraid of heights for most of my life, so that was a big deal for me to be able to do Angel's Landing and to be able to do it multiple times after that. And it just felt cool too because backpacking in the desert is especially hard with water considerations.
Yeah, for sure. And for people that don't know, explain what you mean by a 1 day hike, a regular backpack trip versus a through hike.
Yeah, so there are multiple kinds of backpacking trips you can do. Most people do weekend type trips, although in the media you often hear about the really long through hikes like the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail, the CDT, the Continental Divide Trail, or the Appalachian Trail, the AT. And don't let that discourage you. Not many people actually do that, even though that's the one everybody likes to talk about. A lot of people when they're backpacking, they're just doing weekend trips, and you can either do up point and then maybe back down the same way, back to your starting trailhead. That's just a regular backpacking trip. But a through hike can be any length as long as you are going from point A to point B, and where you end is not necessarily where your car is. One was a 3 day trip, which was the longest trip I'd done at this time. I'm still definitely a beginner with backpacking, and we did 30 miles from one end of Zion to the other in the middle, which is called the Trans Zion Trail because you're going across Zion down into the canyon. And typically you go back up, but for the last year and a half or so, Observation Point has been closed due to rock slides, so that is now impossible.
And I've heard probably on a 3 day trip you're taking all of your food with you. But I've
Yeah,
Is that correct? As they get longer and longer, more days, there are actually some trips where you have to plan ahead, where people will drop off food and supplies for you to be able to continue because you can't carry it all for the amount of time that you're going.
exactly. Yeah, you have to restock along the trail for the longer ones.
That would be pretty intense and amazing at the same time, but intense. um, are you, before we go into this next question, actually, you talked a little bit about equipment before. What kind of equipment do you recommend somebody needing to really get involved with national parks? I know there's a big difference between somebody that just likes to go to national parks and hiking. And we did do some hiking information on the first episode that we did last week. So if you haven't seen that, all of our viewers can check that out on our YouTube channel. Um, but especially national parks, when you're going to national parks, you know, I'm imagining just a lot of people think, hey, we'll just jump in our car and drive around. But I feel like you're going to miss out on a lot if that's all you do. So, what is there any equipment that you would advise people to bring with them? Would you definitely encourage them getting out of the car and finding hikes to go onto or camp or any kind of information like that that would be beneficial for people to know?
Yeah, and I know what you mean by sometimes national parks are drive through and look at things kind of places, and I try to avoid those parks when I can. Yellowstone and Arches are notorious for that. It's more of a drive through experience. No matter what kind of hike you're doing, whether that's backpacking or day hiking, you're on BLM land, Forest Service land, you're in Alaska, you're in Florida, the thing that you always need to start with, even if it's just a couple miles in your neighborhood, is the 10 essentials. And the 10 essentials are a series of 10 items that are, well, essential basically to your survival and to staying out in the outdoors for some kind of unplanned night in case there's an basically everything you need to survive an extra day. And they're pretty simple. I couldn't probably name them all off the top of my head right now, but it's things like water or a way to purify more water, extra food, some kind of shelter, some kind of illumination, which I have here, sun protection, which can be clothing or screen or bandana, navigation. We need some kind of topographic map. And these little guys that you get at the national park booths are not going to because they're not detailed enough for that. These are driving maps versus a topographic map, which you need to know how to actually read and use with the compass is what you need for those trips. And that's five. Oh, insulation, so you need to stay warm. First aid kit, a repair kit, which is something to fix your backpack. Say a strap breaks, especially your shoulder strap. You need some way to fix that for the rest of the trip to be able to use it. Shelter. Which other ones I can think of? Communication is sometimes listed as one, so that could be a cell phone or an emergency signal device or some way to get information out to others in case something goes wrong. Okay, so I'm missing two essentials right now. I think what they are right off the top of my head.
It's pretty close to getting them all off the top of your head. It looks like, and I don't know that this would be essential because it depends where you are, but I think it's something that is good to talk about because I've actually had a run-in with a bear in Montana, but it looks like there's bear spray next to you.
Yeah, so I do have bear spray, not necessarily one of the 10 essentials, but depending on where you're traveling to, this would be an essential. And here in Montana is definitely one of those times. Oh, that's the ninth. That's one of the ninth essentials. So the ninth essential is plan ahead and prepare. Well, it's actually the first one, but it's the ninth in my. Um, so before you do anything, before you go anywhere, researching that place, finding out what the hazards are, whether that's wildlife or whether it's weather or a certain rock type that's maybe really crumbly if you're doing some intense
Mm.
hikes and you're worried about, I don't know, falling or something. Just planning ahead, preparing, have a plan. That is one of the 10 essentials.
Awesome. What would you say to people that like I've got a friend that I really want to take to Africa at some point, and he's like, don't want to go to Africa because it's so outdoors. But there's a lot of things about Africa that he likes. I hear people say the kind of the same thing about wanting to go on hiking or camping. Like the idea sounds cool, but it's very outdoors, like the wildlife and everything. How would you encourage people just to give it a try and that most likely that isn't needing to be as big concern as possible as they're making it to be.
No, yeah, it's certainly scary. And there's a lot of stuff that I definitely don't feel comfortable doing either, or sometimes it makes me nervous. For example, right now, our grizzly bears are all, excuse me, our grizzly bears are all waking up. And so hiking by myself in the woods is a little nerve wracking sometimes at the moment. My biggest advice would be to start small, just as small as you can, no matter what it is. So if you're worried about nature or you're worried about hiking, maybe you start in a city park or a park in your county and just start walking around there. Maybe from there you can go to farther away, more intense hikes, build up your mental and physical levels and abilities. But also doing a lot of research, I think can help demystify things
Mm,
and looking everything up, finding out the kind of gear you need. Um, REI has a lot of really easy to follow tutorials and gear lists online to help you out, and there's a YouTube video for everything. I would not be where I am today with backpacking or hiking if it was not for YouTube. That's where I get all of my gear lists and gear recommendations and learn how to use some of these things and learn what I need for different areas. And if you're visiting a well visited area like Moab, Utah, or certain places in the Rockies in Colorado, or a national park, or a big state park, those are going to have a lot of resources online because so many people are visiting them, so many having different reviews and experiences there, and the agencies or whoever manages those parks are going to have a lot of information on their website as well.
yeah, good points. That's awesome. Um, are you involved with any activities with the LGBT community in the outdoors right now? Any groups, clubs, anything like that that you could recommend?
Well, this live stream right now is about it, unfortunately, because I live in a town of 300 people in the middle of Montana. and I move a lot, so I don't get to know the people where I live and really build community there. When I lived in Utah, I did start an outdoor hiking group there, and we would go to all the different national parks around there and do all kinds of hikes together. We also always brought a pride flag with us, and we would have these really
Nice.
fun photo moments where we would just be outside with the flags. So that picture there is our very first hike in Zion. We went up to the top of Observation Point, which was luckily a few months before it closed, and a gorgeous day, a gorgeous hike. And when that pride flag comes out, everybody is just all smiles, and it's a racial moment where people just feel really prideful outside, and people just get excited to pose with the flag. I've had people stand off to the side of the camera and blow bubbles in front of the flag and have just all these bubbles flying around you and the flag outside. I got this idea initially from Micah Meyer. He is the youngest person to visit all of the, I think it's 419 national park sites, and he is openly gay, and that's a big part of what he does. Is every park he goes to, he has his pride flag and tries to take pictures as often as he can with it at those sites. And there's plenty of Instagrams where you can find people doing that too. Sometimes it's called queering the outdoors.
That's awesome. Um, as an LGBTQ plus person, do you feel like there's more challenges to being in the outdoors and hiking and visiting the national parks? Are there any challenges or benefits that you might see?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is definitely, at least as a gay man for me, just the culture of masculinity in America. I already have that against me. But the outdoor industry is already just so much more macho than background, masculine culture is. When I think of, the history of American outdoor culture, the ethos of American outdoor culture, you often think of people like Teddy Roosevelt, and you think of that nitty gritty can do attitude in the outdoors, which is for some people a very straight way of thinking and a very straight way of being. So it's hard for queer people, and it's hard for straight women too. I know a lot of coworkers who are straight women who have had issues in the past in the outdoor industry, just because it's definitely an old man's club. So I feel like I have that stacked against me. But even when gay people are represented in the outdoors, the other thing I'll have stacked against me is that they are extremely fit and extremely athletic, and I am neither of those things. So I'm definitely all about getting dad bods in the outdoors as well and representing them.
Right. Right. Um, I know you and I have this in common that we're both photographers. That's actually my full-time job, um, and absolutely love it. Got to see some of your work, which is really cool. Makes me jealous of some of the places you've been. But tell us about that and what it's like to be a photographer in the nature and some of the parks that you get to go to and see.
It's the world's biggest guilt trip because I'm living right outside, some of these incredible places, and I feel guilty for not being out in them every day, trying to get as many photos as I can, or getting up at the crack of dawn to get the sunrise, or what have you. Um, so there's that, but it is like great to have these the subject matter I do out here and the wildlife I do have out here to be able to photograph, and I hope to someday or somehow use my photography to further conservation and to photograph these beautiful places, share how beautiful they are, and inspire care and wonder in the outdoors.
And these photos that we are showing right now are photos that you've taken, just so our listeners
Yeah.
know, viewers know. Absolutely amazing. Just a reminder to anybody watching, you can send questions. Most of them we're going to get to at the end, but one just came in about photography, so we're going to go ahead and ask that, which is from Sean Smith. If there was one hike you would recommend for someone seeking a great opportunities for photography, where would it be?
I would say the Colorado for sure, because for me, when I'm filming Arches or I'm filming Zion or Glen Canyon, I don't even have to try. I just point my camera somewhere, and it is incredibly beautiful. With Alaska, um, places are
Can,
so incredible, so out of this world that um, they just like they tell their own story when it comes to photography.
Say the name of the park again that you were saying. I don't know if it was just on my end. I know you're way up in Montana, so I just want to make sure that we caught the name of it.
So I was saying just anywhere in the Colorado Plateau,
Oh,
which
okay.
is where we think desert red rocks for those of you who aren't familiar. So Monument Valley, Arches, Canyonlands, Zion, that's all part of the Colorado Plateau. Grand Canyon, of course.
Awesome. Okay, very cool. If someone wants to get involved with exploring the national parks, where would you recommend them starting? Like, they've never gone to one, they've never even thought about it, but they've seen this and it sparked interest in them and they want to go out and check out a park after all this quarantine is done and see the great outdoors. Uh, Where would they even begin?
Yeah, that is a great question. I have that issue all the time because some of these parks are so big. You know, you're not just going into the outdoors, you're also going to its own little city, and you need to know how the shuttle system works, how the fees work, how the road system works. There are all these kind of things you have to learn. And the first time I went to Zion, I totally felt overwhelmed and didn't really know what to expect just because of trying to figure out how the shuttle system worked and how the heck do I park with these millions of people trying to visit this place at the same time. So the most accurate and official information is going to be on the park's websites. I am a very visual person, so I pore over maps and I can glean a lot of information from studying the map of the park and figuring out how to read that. You can mail parks or ask them to mail you items, and they will send you backpacking guides, wilderness guides, the maps, junior ranger books. All of that will be sent to you because they're a federal agency. They can send that for free out to people. Now, when I say guides, I don't mean this. I mean like newspaper type deals or little paper booklet type deals like this that they give out for free at visitor centers. And those are going to have all the information that you need. And, um, quarantine is a great opportunity to start looking at those because, if we're following 10 essentials and we want to have a good trip and we want to plan ahead, then a lot of the work needs to be done in advance at home, trying to plan ahead. Word of warning. So I did see in the news that after China reopened their national parks just this week, they were completely flooded with people, insane numbers. So for those of you looking to get outside as soon as quarantine ends, do keep in mind that it's going to be 4th of July times 10 in terms of crowding when everybody is finally released back out into the wild. So maybe you delay the big trips to bigger, more crowded national parks, or maybe start locally in county forests or national forests or Bureau of Land Management land before you do the really crowded spots.
Really good point. Yeah, I saw that too about China. Pretty wild. Um, do you have any big trips? Like you're in quarantine right now too, thinking about the outdoors and dreaming about getting back out there. If once this is all done and you could do one big trip, where would yours be?
Oh man, I would sure like to get back out into Colorado Plateau. That's where I lived before here. I've wanted to see the Sierras for a really long time and haven't had the chance to do that. So that's really high up on my list. An unfortunate side effect of moving as often as I do is I don't know where I'm going to be in a few months, and I don't know how to plan where I'm going to be, and I don't know that place yet because I haven't been there yet. So it's really hard to plan in advance. I mean, I don't even know like, am I going to get that time off? The summertime is especially hard in this industry to get time off to be able to travel and do those things. So I'm unfortunately not thinking very far in the future in terms of where I want to go. But I am very excited just to hike in general. There's still quite a lot of snow on the ground here. You still need snowshoes for hiking in Montana. In fact, a low of 5 degrees tomorrow, and we're expected to get up to 4 inches of snow. So I'm really
Wow.
excited just to see bears and hike in boots instead of snowshoes.
I bet. I just heard that was it in the Northeast? They just got snow today as well, and we're here in Texas, and the weather just doesn't know what it wants to do. We just had 97 the other day, and a few days before
Wow.
that, it was like 45 or something crazy. So weather is one thing that you always gotta think about whenever you're planning these trips for sure, because you never know what it's going to be like for sure. Connor, is there anything else that you would like to share before we sign off with you to our viewers?
Um, definitely get a pride flag, and every time you hike, bring that pride flag with you. Um, Great tip. So if you go back to the photo of me on the mountain holding the one up like this, if you get a
Sure.
trekking pole, you can put the end of your trekking pole into the grommets on the pride flag and use it as a flagpole. So you can get some pretty fierce pictures holding up the flag like that.
Nice. That's a great tip. Love that photo. Donna, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and doing this video with us. We're going to show his website. He has a website and Instagram in case you want to follow him. Well, also he has a YouTube channel as well that when we're going to post in the description once this video goes live here in a little bit and is posted on YouTube, so you can check out his YouTube as well. He's got great information, so I'm sure if you have any other questions, you can DM him and he'll be happy to answer them for you right now. No other questions though, so we're going to let you go. Connor, I thank you again. Be safe out there and thank you for taking the time to chat with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to everyone watching.
All right, have a good night. Everybody else, just want to take a couple minutes and just remind you that we are a resource for the LGBTQ plus outdoors community. Even if you haven't ever been involved with the outdoors, but you want to be, now is a great time to be taking opportunities to learn something while you're indoors, so that you can put it to use once we can get outdoors again. Our blog again is a great resource for that. Subscribing to this YouTube channel is a great resource for that. So you're keeping up to date for all the videos that we do. If you are more, I don't want to use the word expert, but you do have that one thing that you love doing in the outdoors that you would like to share with our community, and you would love to do maybe a live video with us or a blog, be sure to contact us. Drop us an email at info@lgbtoutdoors.com or send us a DM through our Instagram, which is also LGBT Outdoors. And again, thank you for tuning in tonight. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. And we hope that you all stay safe and have a great evening. Thank you, guys.